Derek got a text from his bank at 11:47 p.m. Not a fraud alert, not a low balance warning. It was a congratulations message because his checking account had just crossed $50,000. His bank was proud of him. What his bank did not text him was this: that same $50,000 sitting exactly where it was would cost him $19,000 over the next 10 years. Not lose him $19,000 to a scam, not to a fee, to nothing at all, to simply staying still. 3 miles away, his college roommate Priya has the same amount of money saved on the same schedule from the same kind of job. She will end that decade $19,000 richer than Derek. Same income, same discipline, same bank even for the first 4 years. One decision split them apart. And it wasn't a decision either of them remembers making. POV. You're about to find out exactly how much money you've been leaving on the table, because for the last 6 years, I've done one strange thing for a living. I read what banks are legally required to tell you, and almost nobody actually reads. Today, I'm going to show you the exact number sitting in your own account right now that's doing nothing. I'm going to show you where it's supposed to be instead, and at the end, I'm going to give you a 15-second test you can run on your own bank tonight that tells you with total certainty whether you're Derek or Priya. Subscribe before we start because the algorithm buries videos like this one, and this is the one your bank does not want recommended to you. Let's set the trap properly, because most people think they already understand this topic, and that's exactly why it keeps costing them money. There are two completely different numbers people confuse. One is the FDIC insurance limit, $250,000. Famous number, everyone's heard of it. Almost nobody will ever need it. The other number is much smaller, much quieter, and it is draining your account this exact month while you feel good about your growing balance. That second number is the one nobody makes content about because your safety is fine, your growth is the problem, doesn't get clicks. Let's fix that. Here's the rule. Write it down because I'm going to spend the rest of this video proving it to you with real math. Rule 1, 1.5 to 2 months of your monthly spending belongs in checking, nothing more. Rule 2, 3 to 6 months of essential expenses belongs in a high-yield savings account, a money market fund, or short-term treasury bills, never checking. Rule 3, $250,000 is your hard ceiling per bank, per ownership category, full stop. Rule 4, any dollar with no job for 5+ years does not belong in a deposit account at all. That's the whole framework. Now, let's find out what it's actually worth in dollars, because a rule without math is just a suggestion. Start with Derek. He spends about $4,200 a month. Under the rule, his checking account should hold roughly $7,500 to $8,400. That's it. That covers rent, a bad week, a surprise vet bill, done. Derek's checking account actually holds $50,000. That means roughly $42,000 of his money is sitting in an account paying, on average, across the big national banks, somewhere around 0.01% annual interest. On $42,000, that's about $4.20 a year. You could earn more than that by finding loose change under your couch cushions once. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Inflation over the past year has run close to 3%. Derek's account balance never drops. His screen always shows $42,000, but the stuff that $42,000 can buy shrinks every single year, guaranteed on schedule, while his bank sends him a way to save push notification. Safety and growth are not the same thing, and the entire banking industry is built on you never noticing the difference. Move that same $42,000 into a high-yield savings account, paying a competitive rate. Historically, these have run in the 4% range during normal rate environments, and instead of $4.20 a year, Derek earns somewhere around $1,600 to $1,700 a year. Same FDIC insurance, same government backing, Same 12-second transfer to get the money back if he needs it. The only difference is which login screen the dollars are sitting behind. Run that gap forward. Left untouched for 10 years at basically nothing, Derek's $42,000 grows to maybe $42,400. At a competitive rate, compounding, that same money grows to somewhere near $61,000 to $62,000. That gap, $19,000, didn't come from Derek working harder, saving more, or taking on any additional risk whatsoever. It came from one setting he never changed. And Priya, she didn't do anything heroic either. In year 4, a coworker mentioned in passing that her own savings account was actually paying something now. Priya spent maybe 20 minutes opening a second account, moved her extra cash over, and never thought about it again. That 20 minutes is the entire difference between her and Derek at the 10-year mark. Let's talk about why banks are allowed to do this, because I want to be clear, nobody is breaking any law here. It's called net interest margin, and it's the oldest business model in banking. You hand the bank your dollar. They pay you almost nothing for the privilege of holding it. They turn around and lend that same dollar out as a mortgage, a car loan, a business line of credit at a much higher rate. The spread between what they pay you and what they charge borrowers is their profit. Across the US banking industry, that spread typically runs above 3%. On Derek's $42,000, his bank is earning north of $1,000 a year off his money. His cut is $4. That's not really a savings account. That's a very polite, very legal loan Derek is making to a corporation for free. And there's a second, sneakier mechanic layered on top called deposit beta. It's a measure of how much of a Federal Reserve rate change actually reaches your account. When rates rise, the big consumer banks pass along a small fraction of that increase, slowly, over months. When rates fall, those same banks cut what they pay you almost immediately. Slow on the way up, fast on the way down. It isn't a conspiracy. It's just what happens when a business figures out its customers won't leave. And they know we won't leave because of one statistic that should honestly be illegal to know about your own customers. The average American keeps the same primary checking account for close to 2 decades. 2 decades of loyalty to an institution that has never once been loyal back, because loyalty was never the deal. The deal was printed on a disclosure page you were never going to open. If you've been at the same bank since your first job or your first apartment, I actually want to know. Drop the number of years down in the comments. I read every single one of these, and I promise you the range is wider than you'd expect. Now let's go to the number everyone thinks this topic is actually about. The famous one, $250,000, FDIC insurance. This is where people either relax too much or panic too much, and both reactions cost money. Here's the precise wording, because the precision is the whole point. $250,000 per depositor, per insured institution, per ownership category. Most people hear $250,000 and stop listening right there. That's the expensive mistake. Per depositor means you, the human being, not each account you own. Per insured institution means the bank itself, not each branch. And per ownership category is where this actually starts working in your favor, because there are more than a dozen categories and they stack independently. A married couple at one single bank can structure their money to be covered for $250,000 in an individual account for each spouse, plus $500,000 in a joint account, plus additional coverage in retirement accounts, plus more coverage again through a payable on death designation for each named beneficiary. That's well over $1 million of protected money without ever opening a second bank. Here's the mistake that actually trips people up though. Opening a second savings account at the same bank, in your own name, in the same ownership category, gives you zero additional coverage. Zero. The balances get added together and measured against one single limit. It feels like it should double your protection. It does not. What actually adds coverage is a genuinely different ownership category or a genuinely different bank. And what's not covered at all, but worth memorizing: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, annuities, and anything you bought while standing physically inside a bank branch that isn't a plain deposit account. FDIC insurance protects your deposits. It does not protect your investments, even if you bought them from a teller at your own bank. Does any of this actually matter in real life, or is it just theoretical? In March 2023, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed in what became the fastest large bank run in U.S. history. According to the Federal Reserve's own post-mortem report, roughly 98% of the bank's deposits were uninsured, sitting above the $250,000 line. Companies you've heard of got caught in it. Streaming and gaming companies disclosed hundreds of millions of dollars stuck there overnight. A payroll processing company had to liquidate over $100 million and raise emergency financing within about 12 hours, purely so that other companies' employees could get paid that Friday. Regulators eventually stepped in and made every depositor whole, insured or not. But they said publicly, in plain language, that this was an extraordinary, discretionary decision made under pressure, and that nobody should plan their finances around it happening again for them. That's the real lesson from SVB. Uninsured depositors have avoided losses in the large majority of past bank failures. The odds genuinely favor you, but usually fine and guaranteed fine are different sentences. And if you've got a number above $250,000 sitting in one place with a deadline attached to it, you don't get to choose which sentence applies to you when it matters. That brings us to the exception, because there's exactly one situation where holding far more than these rules suggest is completely correct, and I don't want you to walk away from this video thinking cash above the minimum is always a mistake. Priya's sister, Anjali, just sold a small business. $380,000 landed in her checking account, and she's closing on a house in 7 weeks. That money has one job and a hard deadline. It cannot go into the market. One bad month could cost her the house. It also can't sit entirely in one account because $130,000 of it is sitting above the insurance line. Her fix took about 30 minutes. She split the balance across 2 separate banks, keeping each institution under the limit. And both accounts are still earning a competitive rate while she waits to close. She isn't breaking the rule everyone else should follow. She's the reason the rule has an exception clause at all. There are other legitimate reasons to hold more cash than the bare minimum too, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. If your income is irregular, self-employed, commission-based, sole earner in your household, 9 to 12 months of expenses in reserve is defensible, not excessive. If you're retired or close to it, holding 1 to 3 years of living expenses in cash and short-term bonds is a deliberate, respected strategy. It exists specifically so a bad market in year 1 of retirement doesn't force you to sell investments at the worst possible moment. Cash isn't good or bad. Cash is a tool, and how much you hold should be a function of the actual job you've given it, not a number you saw in a headline once and never revisited. So here's the full picture, back together. 1.5 to 2 months of spending and checking, 3 to 6 months of essentials in a high yield account, money market fund, or treasury bills. And if you're in a high tax state, treasury interest is exempt from state and local income tax, which makes it even better than the sticker rate suggests. $250,000 as your hard ceiling per bank, per ownership. Category, always. And anything with no job for 5 years or longer doesn't belong in a deposit account at all, because leaving long horizon money in cash means deliberately choosing a small guaranteed loss to avoid a possible larger one. And you would never take that trade if someone described it to you honestly, out loud, in those exact words.